Hi, everyone. This is Brian Piper again with Elias Ventura, and this is Where Are They Now? The Industry Awards Finalist Podcast. Episode 5. Is that right? 4.
I lost count. I think
It's 4 or 5. We're right in there. We got so many that we're working on. Let me think in my head. 1, 2, 3. Episode 4. This is actually episode 4. We had 5 lined up, but it's getting pushed back a little bit. But we're here, coming up close on Orlando Knowledge Fest again.
The reason why you lost count of episodes is because of Jeff Smith.
Because that one felt like 5 all on its own.
Yeah, he made it like 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, he made 4, 5, and 6 all at once. Man, you know what? We got a lot of really good response from that one. His and John's were, oh man. And even I think Jason Cook has been getting some pretty good response on his podcast as well when we did him.
Everything that we've brought on has been exciting, and I'm excited about today's just because the guy we have on today it's a different kind of passion. He's more of a motivator.
Yeah.
More of a example.
Yep. He's an author.
It's a different author. Yeah, it's a different kind of excitement just because this guy has a different perspective on what it is to do retail, what it is to do installer/fabrication, and what it is to constantly keep making himself better.
Yeah.
One of my favorite guys in the industry, someone I respect, someone as a newcomer in the industry, comparatively to your time in the industry and his, someone that I've always looked at in high regard and been a for lack of better words, a fanboy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So. John and I go quite a ways back. We go back to the 12 Volt Insider Forum. I don't remember exactly when we officially met in person, but it's been a long time ago. I know it's been more than 10 years.
Well,
he and I have talked about business, and we both have competed in the awards in different variants, retailer and installer and all of that. And then he and I have talked outside of the industry.
Yep.
And just in things that he has been through and things that I went through over the last, few years. He really, kind of was always there to talk when I needed somebody to talk to and get some advice from, and never made it feel like it was a rush. You know what I mean? He just very patient guy, very willing to help and willing to give advice and almost mentor in a way that helped me in a lot of ways in and out of the industry. So,
well, you just mentioned his name, so we're going to bring Jon in.
Jon Kowanetz. Am I on now?
You are on, sir.
And I'm going to put this up here really quick just for, going way back, because I still have the paper copy.
Hold on a second. Let me shrink my window so I can see what you're showing there. What was that? Was that the magazine?
Magazine. There you go.
Man, that's like a whole other lifetime ago. That's crazy.
Isn't it? Right?
That's crazy. Yeah. I have those. When I sold Handcrafted, I took some things, obviously, and those things are definitely some things that I took. And I have that cover and the cover from winning Retailer of the Year that were turned into those plaques, that they make, the black and silver ones. Mm-hmm. And I have those up in my office in my house now, and it's
awesome.
It's really cool to look at. Really cool to look at. It means a lot to me that you had that too, and you showed it on there. That's really cool. And thank you so much for the kind words, Elias. Man, that's really. Really, I mean, I didn't know that you felt that way, so it makes me feel really good to know that. And same thing for you, Brian. And by the way, it was Knowledge Fest 2011 when we first met. In the
Dallas.
Gaylord Texan,
Gaylord Texan,
Yes, sir.
Okay,
in person, but before that on the
the forum. I mean, I know we would do the forum much like people do Facebook now. It feels like you've known people forever, right? When you get into those situations and you're talking and you're talking and causing shit on the forum or messaging back and forth or talking shit to some guy that came on and thought he was better than he was.
Right.
I was that guy once.
We all were, dude.
We all were at one point.
Yeah.
You know, but a lot of those guys I've still never met, and the ones that I have met, I seem to be closer to.
Yeah.
You know, so
that's one thing that was always good about those events, man. And I thought a lot about this at a recent event when I was thinking about the ones when we couldn't go, you know, when everything was shut down and we couldn't get together. And I thought about how much was lost there and not being able to connect like that. And you can really only experience that or really feel the weight of that loss when you don't have it anymore. We got so used to seeing each other fairly regularly, so those relationships could be, you know, nurtured, you know. But then, like, when we didn't have that anymore, it's like once we got back into it, I was like, man, I miss you guys.
Right? Well, you show up to Knowledge Fest again once in a while.
I know, right? I know. Yeah.
I actually,
Sorry.
there's something that I'll talk to you about with that later that I had a thought on. But
Okay.
yeah, you know, the thing is, you know, back then it was one Knowledge Fest, and everybody, it was like the lead up to it, the build up to, all right, man, I get to see, and you're calling people and you're messaging people and you're texting people, hey, are you guys going?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It was the excitement more of getting to see the guys that you saw once or twice a year, you know, and getting to hang out and like, all right, we're all going to get together at this place because we knew where we were hanging out. And it was a different time. It was a different time, but it was a lot of fun.
I often told people, like friends, you know, like non-industry friends, when I would go to these things, they're like, "Why are you so excited for?" I'm like, I get to see, these are like some of my best friends, and I see them once or twice a year. So like, I get really excited when I have the opportunity to go and spend time with these guys. And we would always like have these conversations, like you said beforehand, about like setting up a bottle share, you know, and like all these other like events, you know, who's going to be here on this date, and who's all going to that event and everything like that. So we kind of coordinate so that we could all make sure that we're all in the same place at the same time. I have a picture somewhere of, I think it's 2011. I think it was the first Knowledge Fest that you and I met, where everybody, like even Russell Harley, you know, was there up on the stage. Yeah,
yeah.
Like, it was like
at the Glass Cactus.
Yeah, man. Yep. It was like the 12 Volt Insider Forum in person, you know?
Right? Yeah. And it was funny because they were like, oh, the 12 Volt Insiders. And the next thing you know, like, we're standing up on stage and you're looking out at the whole bar, you know, a center, whatever you want to call that place. And it's almost empty.
Yeah,
like,
right.
It was literally, if it wasn't like wives or girlfriends or whatever, there might have been a handful of people that weren't industry or that were industry that weren't insiders.
Right.
And I think by the end of the event, they were, you know, signed up. And, you know, they're sitting in their hotel room signing up on the insider.
Yeah, but we had a high conversion rate.
Both going in and coming out.
Yeah. All right.
Just depending on the day, you know.
Right. Yeah.
You know, you'd have certain days where James Shields or Derek Schmiedel would get in there and just rail on somebody for something they said, and you wouldn't see that guy again.
Yeah.
That person, they would just kind of come and be in there for a day or two, and then those guys would get a hold of them and they'd be gone again.
Yep.
Especially after Derek would, you know, do his thing.
Oh, Derek would just rip into people.
Yeah.
The guy was like legendary status.
You know, it's funny. The one that got me the worst was I went in there, thought I was hot shit, posted some pictures of a vehicle I'd worked on, and I was all proud of it. And James Shields, I'm pretty sure he was hammered drunk, but he came on and he just started just destroying my photos.
No.
and you know, it was kind of like listen, you want to come on and you want to, you know, talk about how good you are, actually be good at what you do.
Right. Yeah.
And he goes, I'm not saying it's not good, but you need to work on something. And then he messaged me privately and he was like, listen, I'm not trying to, you know, tell you you suck. I'm telling you need to work on these things.
Right.
And he gave me this whole list. I was like, oh shit.
Right.
Okay. He didn't give you that publicly because he wanted you to look like an asshole publicly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Got your attention.
Yeah. He gave me a bunch of advice and that's where it kind of took off from for me.
Yeah.
Well, you guys mentioned something that I came into the tail end of, the Insider Forum. I signed up right when it was like getting shut down.
Oh, really?
Oh wow, yeah, you missed a lot,
I definitely
a
missed
lot,
Yeah.
good and bad, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it was some
good
fun
though. It
times.
was a foundation. It was a foundation
Yeah,
for
I
a
mean,
lot of things.
I think it built what all of the the Facebook groups and all that stuff have become. Um, it just was a different feel back then. It was
Yeah, for real, for real. And
yeah.
I was thinking about that. I was recently having a conversation with Troy McGregor,
Mm-hmm.
and we were talking about where he and I first met, and that was on fiberglass forums. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah, I remember fiberglass forums.
Man, it's like, and when I think about that, when I was thinking about this podcast for today, and I was kind of thinking about like preparing a little bit, gathering my
Uh-huh.
thoughts and everything. I was thinking about the history of my career, and I was thinking about what it was like to submit for the industry awards back in 2010,
Yeah.
and versus now, and that got me thinking about what it used to be like just to interact with the industry back then versus now. And when you think about 12 Volt Insider Forum and the way that we would go on there and just write these big, long, lengthy posts, and fiberglass forums, and the way that you had to, create your posts with all the pictures, and you had to host them off site. And like, we put in so much time and effort into just sharing the love of our work with other people,
Yeah.
and it was kind of like God, am I going to be like that guy that like, back in my day? No, that's not what I'm doing. But like back then, it's because it required so much of you. It spoke to your passion,
Yeah.
because you had to sit there for like hours, sometimes, or at least a solid hour to copy and paste a image link to build this beautiful post about this car that you worked on, only for James Shields to come and just rip it all apart.
All the time you spent scanning
Yeah,
actual
man.
photos
Yeah,
from a big old bed scanner into
Yeah.
your computer to be able to upload them.
right. There's something lost there. There's something
Yeah,
lost there.
yeah. It's definitely man. Now you're really making me think of all
Makes
the
you
hours
think,
I
doesn't
lost,
it?
right?
Yeah.
All the hours we lost just creating these posts
Yeah.
on Car Sound and fiberglass forums and the Insider and all this stuff, and finding a place to host all your photos,
Right.
Photo
right.
Bucket, and all
Right,
of that
Photo
stuff,
bucket. Yeah.
and all the different
And
places.
this is where we are now. So I guess the podcast is over.
Thanks for coming on.
all we need now
You got
is did you post on the Insider Forum only to get bashed by James Shield? You're entitled to compensation.
Yeah, did you get bashed by James Shields or Derek Spiel on the Insider Forum?
Do you have emotional trauma?
Call
Yes,
this
I do.
number.
Yes.
Call this number, and it's Derek Schmiedel answering the phone.
Yeah, Derek Schmidt will answer, and he'll really tell you what he thinks.
Oh my god. Oh my god. This is gold. This needs to happen somehow. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna have somebody figure that out.
Don't give Derek ideas.
It's probably already in process right now. This isn't even published, and
Right.
somehow he just knows. He's like getting this like feeling.
Some kind of he got some kind of aura feeling, and he's like, oh hell, all right. Now he's sitting in his computer with
A new way to mess
Bottle
with
and-
people. Ooh. He's like Mr. Burns.
Yeah,
Excellent.
Mr. Bryan. Yeah. No, but
That's
this is
funny.
exciting. It's one of those things where obviously you guys can relate what the industry has evolved to now, but it's also one of those things where I get excited is John, for you it's partaking in so many different facets of the awards and being able to understand like your thought process through it all in your journey. It's exciting. I mean, one-time installer of the year, one-time retailer runner-up, one-time retailer of the year, and one-time most improved. I mean, that's a lot. And I'm sure each one of those awards meant differently in such a big way for you. And man, that's exciting. I mean, so many different awards there and so many different, I would say, like chapters, coming from,
Oh yeah.
you could probably, chime in on this and Brian could probably ask you, to get this started. There's just so much in there. Like, I'm curious, I'm intrigued.
So before I bring up my first question, I gotta say this: the one thing that stands out about 2011, or sorry, 2010, 2011, when you won Installer of the Year, and you're standing on stage, and you start bringing up all of these people that calling out names, of people to come on stage and join you.
Yeah.
All the people that you knew helped you get there. Does that stand out to you still? Like, can you remember that? All
It
those
absolutely
people?
does. Absolutely
Right?
does. And interestingly enough, and small correction, I was actually in 2013 retailer.
Okay.
I actually wasn't present to receive my award for Installer of the Year. We'll get into that, I'm sure.
Okay.
So,
Oh, it was
but
retailer that you won first.
no, I won Installer of the Year first. Sorry, there's like this fly flying around.
Okay, I'm backwards then. Okay.
Yeah, no, Installer of the Year was first. That was in 2010. Retailer of the Year was in 2013. But in 2010, I wasn't at the awards ceremony.
Okay.
The
It was
event that
13.
you're right.
Okay.
Yeah, that was in 2013 for Retailer of the Year. And interestingly enough, Derek Schmiedel was one of the people that came up on
Yes,
stage.
he was.
Yeah. But yeah, it's funny that you bring that up because I was actually when I was creating content for my new website, I was looking for that video of that award ceremony when all that happened, and I could have swore I had it saved somewhere on like a hard drive or something to that effect somewhere, and I couldn't find it. And I started messaging people. I messaged McNulty. I was like, "Hey, dude, I remember you sharing this video before. I have this vague recollection of you sharing this video. Any chance you have a link?" And he was like, "Oh man, I don't know. I couldn't find it." And I ended up finding it on YouTube or something like that. Parrish Tanner had posted it. And it was
Oh,
like,
nice.
I watched back through it again, man, and it was like, wow, that's like a lifetime ago. I mean, 10 years ago now, and
Right.
just like watching that and seeing all the people on there and like, I don't know, that was a super, super special night for me.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, my first question to you, official question of this is, let's talk about your overall industry experience, and what is your current role in the mobile electronics industry?
So when you say overall industry experience, you mean like when
Kind
I
of where you
started
started and
what I
kind of a
did?
quick run through. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, non-professionally, it started like when I was like 15, 16, and I had my first car, and I had installed a couple of subwoofers and like an alarm in there and a radio. And when I had to get rid of that car, I had someone else do that installation. Ironically, it was a guy that I ended up working for later on down the road. But he installed a couple of subs for me and an alarm system. When I had to get rid of that car, I didn't have the money to pay him to take it out. So I was like, well, I'm not going to let it go with the car, So, and I was always really handy, So like, I bet I could figure this out. And I did. I took it out, and then I decided, well, if I uninstalled it, I could probably figure out how to reinstall it. And so I did. I installed the subs and the alarm system in my next car, and that was kind of like, wow, this is fun, because I've always been like a technical electrical engineer type of guy, and I love music. So anything to make that better, So then that kind of turned into, hey, a friend saw that I did this and asked me for help on their car, and then my brother needed help on his car, and like so on and so forth. But I think so that kind of like lit the fire, And I worked regular teenager jobs in between, like a record store and like a fast food joint and all that stuff.
Right.
But I think my first initial job was with that guy that did the original installation in my car when I was like 19 or so. So that would have been 18, 19. So that would have been like 99, 2000 or so. And that was like sweeping floors, doing the whole entry level thing that, people used to do in the industry, just getting started, just want to learn what they can, and started learning, and they were teaching me about the basics of installation. And from there, I went to work my first like real job as an installer at Best Buy, part-time, and started installing there. Moved up to full-time, then moved up to Install Bay Senior, I think is what they called it back then, Install Senior.
Okay.
Then from there to car audio supervisor, and then like an area manager or something to that effect. So there's like a bunch of big box experience. And I went to Ultimate Electronics and worked there for a little while. Similar thing, install manager. In between all of that, somehow, I did expediting at car dealership lots. I worked at a couple of different custom shops. One of the ones I worked at was Edge Audio, Scott Owen's shop. That was a ton of fun. Learned so much from that guy.
Yeah.
And just had a really good time. And then in 2007 was when I was still working at Edge Audio, actually. Yeah, that's right. I was working at Edge Audio, and they decided to close. Scott decided to close that store. And I went back to Best Buy part-time while I was building Handcrafted.
Okay.
So then Handcrafted I launched in 2007, and I went full-time with that about near the end of 2007. I think November 2007 was when it was like, I've got too much business with my side hustle. I got to quit my day job, to make the side hustle work.
Right.
Yeah.
And that, if I remember correctly, that started in like your garage, and it was a little tiny garage from what I remember.
Yeah. It was,
And then,
I never measured it, but it was 2 cars, small cars. It could fit my then wife's Scion TC, but not my truck at the same time. But yeah. So I started out of the garage, and but it was really great. I looked back on that often as I built the business, and we moved into our second location and our third location, and we got bigger and all that stuff. And I looked back on that time as really grateful for that, because it was so small. I had to be really, really, really smart about how I used my space. So everything was collapsible. Things were on wheels. I could tuck things underneath other things. My wood storage was overhead, so.
I remember that.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, as the business grew and I got more space, I still was very smart about how I used it, so that, like, no square inch went to waste. It was very, very efficient.
I remember going into your first not home-based location. And I remember walking in the bays, and at that time you had like racks up the middle of between the bays to hold product and stuff and gear, like parts on the cars and stuff, and solder stations on benches. But I remember everything, like there was so much stuff, but it didn't, the bays didn't look overwhelmed.
Yeah.
With stuff. Everything like had certain place, and it was just all put together and clean. And I always remembered, man, how does he make it just like, I was looking around, I'm like, dude, there's tons of stuff here. and how does he make it not look full? I was like, I have less crap in my shop, and it looks more of a disaster than this. Like it took a lot to try to figure that out, to go home and figure out how to organize my place.
It's kind of, I think there's two causes for that. I mean, first of all, like I just said, it was like out of necessity.
Yeah.
To begin with, because like, my wife, she still wanted to pull her car in the garage at the end of the night, so I had some reasons to want to accommodate that need,
Right.
But then it's also just kind of my nature, I'm just like I'm pretty organized, pretty clean, person, and I really don't like clutter, and I really, really, really like processes and procedures. I'm kind of like a process and procedure kind of nerd.
Yeah.
So like, I like the idea that everything has like a way or a place, or like the panel racks that you talked about. Like I love that, because that they have the panels have a place to go, and even like the hardware, there were bins, with screw tops. So it has a place where it goes. It's not just like everywhere, So it was kind of out of necessity, but then also I think it's just a reflection of my personality too.
Yeah. So what are you doing now? I know the answer to this because I read it, but
Yeah.
Tell us about what you're doing now.
So I just launched my new company. Let me back up. In 2022, last year, August 1st of 2022, the sale of Handcrafted was official. That was like the official change of ownership from me to the new owner.
Mm-hmm.
And then over the next 6 months, I took some downtime to kind of like let things settle. I also took some time to, finish up the books with Handcrafted on my side from, that date prior. And then to, just finish up some final details. And I was also on a part-time 6-month contract with MSC. So Larry Penn, when all this is going down, he's like, man, I'm so excited for you. I support you in every way possible, but we could really use some help, over the next 6 months. Let's give you a place to kind of like a nice soft landing, give you something to do, something to focus on. You can help us out. We'll help you out. And then we'll see what happens after those 6 months. But at the bare minimum, you got 6 months of something to do. And so I had like this amazing opportunity to just kind of like make this big change that I knew I really needed to make, and to fall into something that just made the transition easier. And
kind of like a wind down.
Yeah. And with such great people, like it was.
Right.
I couldn't have asked for anything better, and I'm so grateful to them for that. But so that expired in the middle of February. I stayed on a little bit longer, but about the first week of March or so was when that contract was officially kind of over.
Okay.
And literally the next day was when I started building my new business, which is Pathways Coaching and Consulting. So Awesome. It's kind of like now what it is it's kind of like the I would say of all the business ideas that I've had over the past couple years, as I've been thinking about selling Handcrafted, this is the most all-inclusive of all of the things that I want to accomplish in my career going forward, and all the things that I want to create, give, produce, whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very
That's
cool.
definitely exciting.
Thank you. I'm super excited about it. What's I'm I don't mean to get too deep here, but I have certain spiritual beliefs of my own that kind of I follow what I feel, and I follow things that I think of as like omens. So like if you see something that's like, wow, that's really weird that you would see that right now, and it almost seems like it's guiding you,
Yeah.
I've learned to follow those as faithfully as I can. Sometimes it still drags me along, but I've had so many of those kinds of instances with this new business. From the moment I committed myself to doing it, it was like literally it happened like 3 times today. And it can be very small things, it can be monumental things.
Right.
But they all kind of tell me that this is the right path, for me. And so, yeah, it's super exciting, and it's very fulfilling, and I'm having fun, and it's, it's good.
That's a good thing. Having fun is important, right? Because it makes what we do, whatever it is we do, a lot easier.
It makes us that much better at it too.
True. Well, because you want to commit to it.
Yeah,
it energizes you to commit to what you do. So
right.
I know there were days when I was still in the Bay, and I was kind of getting to that point where I was having a hard time physically. I had to get out because of physical issues.
Right.
But there were days where physically I just didn't want to do it. It just was sucking the life out of me. And I was like, I was starting to think about what else is there.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that wasn't in the industry. And that really hit hard on my heart. Like, I might actually have to leave this industry that I've been in all my life and really don't know anything else. So, yeah, when you find that excitement to keep you wanting to do what you're doing, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up. Again, it's just these little connections that happen, man. It's really empowering. So I was earlier today. I'm spending a lot of time at Starbucks lately because I'm new to the whole like work from home thing and not having a place to go.
Right.
And I like people, so like I want to be around people, so I'll go there. I'll just sit at Starbucks. I'll literally sit there for like 5, 6, 7 hours sometimes, just working, writing and
$50 in coffee later.
Whatever, yeah. It's madness. I should buy stock in Starbucks, but I took a break and I had a phone call with Sophia, about an article for the magazine coming up, and part of it was on burnout and the times that I've experienced it, like what you're describing, how I overcame it. And kind of like advice, and I won't spoil too much because there's going to be an article about it, but it was there. It's such a common problem for any industry, any person, but especially one in which we're so driven by passion for what we do, and so many of us just love this stuff, and that's the reason why we get started in it, because we love it. For me, it's recreating music, and it's the challenge of doing that in a difficult place. I couldn't care less about cars. I don't care about cars. I love music, and I love recreating it in a difficult place, the challenge that involves. So when you do this thing that so many people do because they love it so much and there's so much passion behind it, when that passion starts to fade, or when you stop doing the part of it that you loved so much, that's when burnout starts. Because you're working so hard. Some guys are doing 60, 70 hours a week, and they're not even doing the thing that they love anymore. Like, why am I even doing this?
Yeah.
Or their body is giving them a hard time, and it makes it difficult for them. So it's a really, really big problem, I think, and it manifests itself in multiple different ways. I know I experienced that many times.
Yeah. Well, and I know, like, you've said it, and I've said it, and several other guys have said it, but getting to the age that we've, where, I'm 51, and you hit your 40s or late 30s, and you got families and kids, and like you with your daughter, and more me with my daughter now that I'm a single parent as well. Like, any of that time, it's limited. So finding that work-life balance, that didn't exist when I was in my 20s. It didn't exist in my 30s.
Yeah.
There was no work-life balance. It was all work because, for whatever reason, whether it was I need to make the money, or now I'm chasing these goals, or now I'm chasing these awards, or I'm trying to prove a point to myself through proving a point to other people, whatever it was, right? We all have fought those demons. If that's what you want to call them now. But it was finally getting to that point of, I don't want to do that anymore. Then I found love for what I did again. But let's get into this a little bit more.
Okay.
So, segueing into what we want to learn more about, and this is one of the other layers. What was it like participating in the awards, whether it was a retailer or installer or any which one you want to talk about? But what was that experience like for you?
The act of participating in them?
Yes.
All over the board. That's actually a really, really interesting question, because I think about the first one, Installer of the Year. That was a 107-page physical document that I made. Yeah, it was a book that was this thick. Because, you had, like 4x6 or 5x7 or whatever photos, 2 per page, and back then it was so heavy on projects. And there was like a vehicle that you had to submit for multiple different categories. So if there's a lot of detail to be shown, sometimes one vehicle would have 10, 12 pages. So it was very easy to make these things, but I remember that book. I still have that. It's really cool. So going from that extreme of putting significant amount of time into creating this document, this physical thing that I packed inside of a box and I sent it off to Joni Owens, at the magazine, to one that I won, and Chris probably still hates me for this, and I'm sorry, but I didn't remember that we had been nominated for it. We were super busy. It was in the middle of like a full store remodel, and when they announced our name, I was so shocked because I didn't know that we were even up for the running, and I believe I even said something about it when I was on stage accepting the award, and I feel bad about that. But that was kind of the gamut of it. It was like there was so much effort and time and heart and soul put into some to one. Not being aware that it happened, but then all the way in between too, and like the retailer of the year one was still a lot of that, and different though, because you're talking about your business and financials, and then you're talking about some of the other ones, the performance awards and stuff like that, and the things that you have to present and how you show for that, and so that part of it was really diverse, dynamic, I guess is a good way to say it, exciting. Revelatory for me. I learned a lot about myself, about the business, by going through those processes. It was exciting. I remember back in the day, and even now they do it now, where they'll post updates, like daily, weekly updates of who's in the lead and by what percentage. And it was so exciting back then to be like, oh my God, I'm so close, and it's like, this could actually happen to me, like, oh my God,
right?
And like posting on Facebook and like forums and whatever, like, you guys, I'm this far behind third place or whatever it was, and
vote for me.
Vote for me. Yeah. It's your last chance. Yeah. So that was cool. It was very cool.
I have a quick question on that book, that document.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any recollection of how much time you think you had put into that?
Oof.
How many hours?
Well, if I recall correctly, and this is like 2010, bro, so like 13 years ago.
Right.
I have a bad memory now. It was better then, but it's definitely not now. So I believe back then when it was like a 6-month process.
Yeah.
To get from the top 50 or top 100 or whatever it was back then
100.
To the top 12.
Right.
And you knew that you were in the top 12 and were going to have to create this submission like 3 or 4 months before it was due. And I would bet you, just because of whatever that law is that says that the work expands to take as much time as is given, I probably took that much time. So the number of hours... Man, I've got to say at least a solid work week, if not more, 40, 50 hours at least.
Okay. So the reason I asked that is because, we have conversations in groups. Elias and I participate in some of the MEA groups, and we hear this a lot from people like, oh, there's never enough time. And it's, now with the awards being hosted in Vegas, they're like, oh, it's the busiest time of the year for us because people are up north, right? And so it's remote start season for them. Right. And I'm like, well, think about when we were in Dallas in August, and all of us down in the South, the busiest time of the year for us is spring and summer. Right. So it's not any different, But I remember, being in the top 12 and putting together a not winning presentation, and I was in it easily 40 hours.
Yeah.
And other guys I've talked to, they're like, oh yeah, we were probably in it 60, 80 hours. And they're guys that won or came close to winning, and so it's like all these people that talk about time, and so I was curious to see if it was really a couple of guys that I've talked to before this, like not to do this podcast, but in the past we've talked about putting those presentations together back in the day, and they're spending 60, 80 hours to put these 100 hours to make one retailer of the year packet, because it wasn't a video you made and uploaded on YouTube. It was all these things you had to put together, and then you had to ship it.
Yep.
It
was crazy. I can go get it and show you what it was. It was insane.
We'll have to do that one time. I have an idea where that might. I have an idea of a time that might be something fun to bring up.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always interesting when people talk about, oh, I don't have time. But nowadays with what we do and the way we submit, you have all the time in the world, because if you're trying to get there, you can make videos and take pictures all year long to be ready.
Right.
Start compiling videos, start compiling all this stuff. If you've competed once, you know what they're going to ask for.
Right.
So it's just one of those things. But back then, it when you're having to like literally go have pictures printed and then
Right.
tack them 2 pages, 2 at a time, and then flip the page and 2 more, and
Yep.
and sort through what all of that is. I can't imagine. It was, a week seems light.
It probably was way more than that. Like I
Right.
said, it took the 3 to 4 months that I was given, but
Right.
in the midst of running a business at the same time, in the midst of having a pregnant wife at the same time,
Yeah.
getting the house ready for the baby and all that type of stuff, like you have to obviously divvy up that time.
Sure.
But
And you're not counting hours or 30 minutes here or 20 minutes there. You don't count it all. And now to think back, but yeah, like I said, I'm curious to see how many people actually do remember what it took to do it back then. You know what I mean?
yeah, that would be
Time wise,
interesting.
because I mean, and I will admit that I was one of those guys in 2016 going, dude, this is such a pain in the ass. And it's taking me, I think I had just over 40 hours in my presentation,
Yeah,
and it was a YouTube video.
yeah.
And I also remember doing a lot of it in the last 3 or 4 days, because I want to do this. Oh, I wanted to add that. Oh, that doesn't look right. Or I didn't do enough of it, and so now I got to cram.
And it's kind of funny. So like, talking about how much time it took back in the day to create this physical binder,
Yeah.
this physical document. And and certainly that does take a lot of time in its own way, but the videos, they take a lot of time in their own way also. And it's like, especially with some of the ones that you're seeing these days,
Right.
like some of them are like legit. Like I remember the first video I saw that just blew me away was John Schwartz's Retailer of the Year. I think it might have been his second time winning.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It was the cinematography was there, and like the soundtrack was there. I was like, are you kidding me? Like I gotta hire like a film crew to
Right?
win this thing now?
Yeah, and the funny
it's
part of all
crazy.
of that is
Crazy.
everybody goes, "Oh, you don't need that. You don't need that." And you know how we do shit, right? Like this
Yeah.
industry isn't like, "Oh yeah, here's my phone and here I am and da 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 installer of the year."
I mean, here's the deal.
That doesn't work.
What really matters, like in the core of it, because I've judged the awards before, right?
Right.
So what really matters in the core of it is the content,
Yes.
what it is that you're actually saying, what you're sharing. But what you have to remember when you're creating these submissions is that people like us are the ones that are judging it. So we are creative people. We want to see that creativity in your presentation. Not
Right.
to mention the fact that some of these are super long. And
Right.
so if you want to keep my interest, it needs to be interesting.
Yep.
So there's a lot
You're gonna
of
make
value
me watch
to
a movie.
that.
You better make it fucking good.
Right, or else I'm going to lose interest. And then what's going
Yeah.
to happen if I lose interest? I'm going to lose some of the information you're talking about.
Right. And then
so
I go back and watch it 3 times, and I don't have time.
and there's no way, because when you're when you're judging the awards, dude, I kid you not, there's one that was 3 hours long.
Yeah.
3 hours long, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
You guys mentioned something that resonated with me. I think, John, you said it. It's the rediscovery of like reflecting of what you've done in that year. Like for me, 2016, 2017, I can't remember now, but for my award, I was talking in front of this camera and I'm like, there's more that I want to say. There's more that I want to say. And I would delete and go back and start over. But like reflecting on what you've done and the work
Yeah.
you put forward, that just unlocks another level of passion for me, at least. I can say that. And I'm sure for, both of you guys, you guys have, taken part in the awards and, you guys can relate, but there's something to be said about reflecting on what you've accomplished and being so passionate about it, whether it's a production video, whether it's just a regular, iPhone, Android, video.
Yeah.
The words and the content that comes out of it, I mean, that's what really, extracts the passion and feels like, the motivation of like, this is what I've done and I'm damn proud of it,
Right. Right. This is my art.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what it was, you know?
And that's what all of this becomes too, is making the videos. It becomes another form of artwork for us. And there's never enough passion in it. Like we always want to put more. It's like doing those custom projects, right, John? We've done this. You do all this cool stuff to a car, you build it, and then you have this thought, and you're like, oh, but I could do this.
Yeah, right. Take it all back apart.
And then you've got another 4 hours in making some little piece of shit part that you didn't need to build and you didn't need to waste 4 hours on, but you went and made it because it was cool. And yeah, I could have saved that for another car, but no, I got to do it now.
It was probably that
funny about
midnight or
that.
3 a.m. idea.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's funny. A funny story about that, real quick. When I was before I started Handcrafted, I was in school at that time. I was at ASU for the electrical engineering program. I was in like my junior year or something like that. And before I started Handcrafted, I was kind of at a real crossroads, in my professional life, my career in the industry. And I had done a lot of things. I had really enjoyed it, but that was like my first experience of burnout. And I was really kind of over it. I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't know if I want to do it anymore, but like I had this desire to do it on my own, but I was like, God, do I really want to do that? Or do I want to put all that energy into my degree and, pursue that harder? And what I actually ended up doing was, I told myself, okay, I'm going to take some time away from it. I'm just going to step back and I'm going to evaluate how I feel over time. And one of the things I decided to do was in that time period, I was going to work on a project, and it just so happened to be my wife's car. And I decided in my own head, I said, okay, I'm going to work on this project, and if I find myself being creativity, if I find myself being like, oh yeah, but what if I did it this way, or oh man, what if I did that, or I'd staying up late, like you're talking about, Elias, and like something wakes you up and you sketch it out, or you write it down, or whatever you got to do to capture that moment. If that happens, then there's still something there, and I'm going to pursue it. And so, and if it doesn't, then I'm just going to go back, stay in college and finish my degree. And so, working on that car, I worked on it off and on here and there for like a month or so. And I found myself doing so many like these little tiny polished aluminum rings and these little like kind of like almost teardrop semicolon kind of shapes and all these different extrapolations on one design and different finishes and paint and vinyl and carpet and all the things that we did back in those days, and I was like, wow, man, I had so much fun. I loved this. And so that was why I started Handcrafted. So yeah, it's like like you're saying, when you find yourself drawn into that, it's that artistic expression, it's that thing inside of you that says, I have an idea that needs to be made into a thing, and nothing's going to stop me,
Right.
It's beautiful.
That thing is typically never a good time idea. Thing is typically, customers picking up the car in 3 days. I can squeeze it in. I can make it happen.
But you know what I did, though? What I'm really proud of in my business and in Handcrafted was I really got good at honing that and dialing that in, and controlling it, but also being able to build in allowances for that or communicate that to the customer when that happens, making it so that we were not one of those shops that like, we love doing custom work, but we lose money on it every time we do it. Absolutely not. 100% not. Like we were very, very profitable on the custom fab work. And to be able to control that side of yourself, that artistic side of yourself enough to be able to say, hey, I really want to do this thing, but the customer's like, man, I don't have any more money. I'm sorry. I just can't spring for it. Okay. Well then, I just got to let it go, because I can't, if it's another hour, no big deal. Fine. I'll do it for my own satisfaction. But if it's another 6-7 hours, another day's worth of work, you just can't give that away.
Yeah.
One of my rules, and I'll share this with you guys. And for those watching, this might be helpful, but anything that, for me, that I bid it on that was custom work, I always had a percentage of like a plus or minus percentage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was always my safety net, So whether it took an hour or an hour less, or, something got creative, like you guys were saying, a couple hours extra, I had that buffer room. So there was no need to call for the customer. I already had that expectation already kind of built in as an expectation. So He just allowed for that creativity to like unravel, like, you know, in the last hour or in the last
Yeah,
day,
man. Yeah,
you know.
man.
So,
That's awesome.
So
yeah,
best way to do it. Yeah, we had plus or minus 10%
yeah,
variance.
yep.
There you go. There you go.
Yep.
So I got to ask you, how did participating in the industry awards as an installer, as a retailer, how did that help you develop you, your store, your career, and your future from that point forward?
From the installer of the year one?
Pick. I mean, we kind of started this as installer of the year, but you've got so many, you've got both sides of the coin there as an installer and as a retailer. So I guess, what had the more dramatic effect?
Man. So if I think of three of the awards, I would say each one of them had a very dramatic, strong impact on my life for their given time. So I'll be as quick as I can about this, but
Go for it.
I would say, so starting with installer of the year, that one was huge for me because as I said before, for the acceptance of that award, I actually wasn't at the event for when that award is given out because, like I said, my wife was pregnant, my daughter was due to be born, and when my wife was 5 months pregnant, we found out that our daughter had something called DeGeorge syndrome, which is a chromosomal abnormality. And it causes a lot of things. In her, it was primarily, she had no thymus, so she didn't have an immune system on her own when she was born. Her body had to make it up in other ways. She had palate abnormalities, which made it difficult for her to eat, swallow. Some hearing loss that she still has today. But her biggest thing was heart defects. So she had a completely separated aortic arch. So it was completely separated. So that meant that the whole left side of her body had no blood flow to it when she was born. And then she had a hole between the two lower chambers of her heart. So we found out about that when she was 5 months pregnant. And my daughter was born on September 29th, 2010. Back in those days, the industry awards and that whole event were first or second week of October. So the way it went down, and we knew about it going into it, was that we knew that when she was born, she was going to have open heart surgery as quickly as possible after she was born, but after enough time had passed to where she was stable,
Right.
So it was a really crazy time because we had to go through, normally a pregnancy is a very happy, thing. Yeah. So we went through like the remaining like 4 months, 5 months, honestly, not even knowing if she was going to survive birth. So it was really challenging, but we were trying to keep our hopes up. We were trying to get through it. And then she did survive, she was born and all that kind of stuff. But the night of the industry awards was the night before her surgery.
Oh, wow.
So I'm not going, what I mean? So, and it was crazy because going through all of that stuff, with all the doctor's appointments, near the end, we were going to the doctor 2 times a week, and we live in Gilbert. The doctor was in downtown Phoenix, which is like 35-minute drive. So 2 times a week back and forth in rush hour traffic while trying to build a business, while trying to create this 107-page document, while doing all the things that adults have to do.
Right.
It was crazy, crazy time. And I did all of that for this award, potential of an award, only to not be able to go. And of course, I wouldn't have changed anything for the world, but I actually found out before the award ceremony was to take place that I won because Joni Owens, Joni Mitchell, I think is her last name now, she sent me a package and she messaged me. She said, hey, next time you get a chance, go home. I sent you a package. I was like, okay, cool. I had to go get some supplies anyway. So I went home and I go back. There's this huge box on my doorstep. And I open it up, and inside there is like a super sweet letter that I still have. And she's telling me that I won and congratulations and all that type of stuff. And she hopes nothing but the best for me, for my daughter, and da da da. Underneath that was my award. Underneath that was this like super soft, beautiful blanket with like a lamb's head on it.
Wow.
And my daughter still has that today. And it was like, it was so powerful and so incredible and emotional for me, because like that's when I found out that I won on my own, by myself, on my doorstep. Shortly before my daughter was set to have open heart surgery. Like the emotion behind all of it was insane.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. But the thing is that like it also. I had been in the industry for so long at that point, and like so many people knew about my story. They knew what was going on with me because I share like everything,
Yeah.
you know. And
I remember all of that happening and
Yeah.
the stories of it, you know, on Facebook of all of that stuff being kind of broadcast out there.
Yeah. So it was like this moment where like I was so happy, I was so proud, I was so sad, I was so scared, but I was also like really. It endeared me, you know, not only to Joni but to the whole industry. So
Right.
So it was really pivotal for me to win at that time because of all that I was going through, but then also because my business was relatively new, and I felt like I was like I didn't think like anybody like even really knew who I was or like So
Yeah.
it kind of like it gave me this legitimacy within myself, because I had always had this internal battle with like am I good enough? Can I really do this for people? Am I going to be able to build this thing? You know,
Right.
a bit of self-doubt. You know, and so to get that kind of thing was kind of like affirmation that like, hey, you're good at this. And a whole bunch of other people think that too. And so
Right.
that kind of empowered me to be able to speak to that, to my customers about that, and speak with some authority, some confidence, some backing of all these people in the industry, you know? And so, Installer of the Year was really critical for me then. And it really propelled. So that was 2010. That was shortly after I moved into, it was still only me at that time. Mm-hmm. I moved into my first actual business location in it wasn't a retail location, it was like an industrial space.
Right.
So it really propelled Handcrafted from kind of like just a guy working out of his garage to like an actual business, you know, that is accredited in a way.
Sure. For sure.
Yeah. So it was really, really big for me. Installer of the Year was really big for me that way. Retailer of the Year in 2013 was huge for me in a number of ways. First and foremost, what you talked about earlier in the video, I didn't get to be there on the stage to win Installer of the Year. So 3 years later, when I was able to be there with everybody and to win Retailer of the Year, having gone through all of those difficult, you know, Charlotte's surgery was just the beginning. Like the whole rest of that first year of her life was touch and go. So that was difficult. And then just a bunch of other complications was difficult. And being there with everybody, I remember TC Holiday going through something with his child. And we had a couple of other people. We had lost Steve Hawk by that time, I think. So
Yeah. We're real close. Yeah.
Yeah. And there were so many things that like were heavy, but then like also at the same time, like I was there and I was able to do this thing that I missed out on the opportunity for 3 years before. So that's kind of part of why I invited everybody up on stage with me, was because like, this isn't just me.
Right.
And so, you know, bringing them up there was kind of like my way of saying thank you. But
Yeah.
that was also another reason why Retailer of the Year is so important to me, because I've never really some people might think this is kind of weird considering that I've done like public speaking and stuff like that. I've never really been comfortable in like the limelight. Like I'd never really wanted to be like the center of attention. I wasn't comfortable with like compliments even, or like adulation.
Right.
I just wasn't. Growing up, I just never was. I was always like, yeah, okay, you know, like
Yeah.
so I was much more comfortable and proud of Retailer of the Year because that's my company, that's my team, that's everybody. It's not just me. This is this thing that we built, and we could take that, just like I took Installer of the Year, and use the confidence that gave me and the credibility that I felt that it gave me. Retailer of the Year did the same thing, but it was so much more powerful because it was about all of us, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it was at such a critical time because we had just moved into our third and final location when we won that award. And so it was, again, it was kind of like, man, can I do this? Like, this is like a real shop now. You know, like I was facing like Arizona State Highway 87. That goes from Tucson through Phoenix to Flagstaff. Like, it's a major thoroughfare, you know? And like, it was big and it was beautiful. And I was like, am I biting off to more than I could chew? You know, like, here I am with like my big boy pants on. Can I swing it? You know? And like, so like to get that vote of confidence at that critical time was really, kind of like a catalyst, you know, for the growth that we experienced in the years that followed, and not only for me but for like the whole team, you know.
That's awesome. When it affects everyone, not just you, because you a retailer, you know, when you go for that, and it really is about the team. You know, I know you know, when I had Innovative and we made Retailer a couple times and had enough of a team that it really was a whole team effort. You know, we would have conversations about, you know, if we make top 12, what are we going to do? And guys are, well, it's your shop. And I'm like, no, I just write the checks. You know, I pay the bills. We do this together, you know, and so watching, you know, and hearing that story like that, you know, of how much it's a catalyst for a whole team. That's really cool. That's really cool.
And you know, I would say the same was true for the final one too. The most improved. Yeah.
Well, that speaks to a whole team putting in the effort.
100%. 100%.
You know, if you go, hey, we're going to make changes, well, everybody has to be on board for the changes to really happen. Otherwise, it's just changes that nobody cared about.
Right. And I'll be, you know, like there was like the most improved location. That was after we had just got done doing this massive showroom upgrade. Right. You know, and we built a sound room. We wrapped the walls in vinyl graphics. We moved the sales desk. Like we did so many things. What I felt like we did when we did that upgrade was Handcrafted finally looked like what I always sold it as, you know? So like I always sold it as like, this is our heart and soul. We love what we do. This is not just a job. This is not just something that we're doing just to get your money. You know, we love this. We want to include you in it. We want you to experience it. We want you to feel things. We want you to hear things. We want you to, you know, every single part of this, we want you to be a part of it. And when we redesigned the show floor, it finally looked like that. But even though, you know, I wrote the check, like so many people made that happen. I mean, the sound room was Desiree's idea. And she pushed super hard for that. And finally I gave in. And so we did it. So that would have never happened if it wasn't for her. Upgrades to the install bay was Nick's idea. The vinyl graphic designs were Marcel's idea. So it was a collaborative effort. And so it was like, once again, to win that award, it was like, we invested all this time, all this money. We bet on ourselves. We followed what felt right, what we felt was going to present us in the most accurate and authentic way. And the industry was like, hey, good job. That works, you know? You did it. So it was awesome.
That's amazing.
I remember seeing the pictures of like the showroom and how it was laid out. And to me, it just kind of set the standard of what, you know, best of the best and what creative customer experience basically embodied. You know, like if I were to walk into your showroom, I didn't care what it was, I wanted to buy it just because of that experience.
Yeah.
You know, you
Thank
could
you.
have told me it was a backup camera or, you know, full on custom everything. Just the experience and how it was laid out. It just seemed like every time a customer came in, they were getting not only a mini tour, but, you know, the passion that you guys projected, the experience of what you guys wanted from start to finish, but also represented what the industry, you know, should set themselves to be as a standard.
Hmm.
So to me, that was always, I would always drool over the pictures because I would like look at like different layouts. I'm like, I can see where they're going with that. I can see where their
Yeah.
process is on that. So it was really cool.
You know, what's funny is a quick story pertaining to that. I in my new business in the Pathways Coaching and Consulting, I'm talking to a rep firm about working together in certain ways, and and we were talking on the phone, and he's like, man, I'm so happy to hear that you're doing this, and he's like, it's really funny because he said, I have a colleague, you know, that was traveling in the Arizona area, and just a couple months ago, and he went and he visited Handcrafted, and obviously I'm not there anymore, but you know, he went and he visited it, and he told this guy, he said my colleague, he went and he visited Handcrafted, and he said, man, the place was like so nice and so dialed, and there were so many things there that made him feel like this is just a really customer centric, you know, comfortable kind of place that just makes you want to buy it, like you just said. And he's like, I don't know who's responsible for this, but they should be teaching other people how to do it. And so months later, when like literally last week, I think when the article was published and I shared it on Facebook and stuff, like 30 minutes after it got published, this guy saw that and he said, wow, that's like that is exactly the place that, you know, the guy was talking about. So he told me, he's like, man, I was interested in working with you before I even knew you were doing this. So
That's great.
remember what I was saying about omens, man? It's like
Right.
that is like it's so good. So
And
You
that
know-
part, that creative customer experience, and then you just followed up with it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you.
So I'm gonna go to where it really hits home for me, and Brian and I are, you know, huge proponents of what the industry awards are and what they mean to us and what they mean to a lot of people.
Okay.
So for me, this is kind of like the, you know, the final thoughts question. What are Jon's words of encouragement for those looking to participate in the awards, whether it's first time, repeat time, you know, thinking about giving up, you know, on the awards? What are your words of encouragement for those as a you know, massive influencer as you are for the industry? You know, Brian and I can only take it so far, so we always like to get an outside perspective. And coming from you, I think this is a strong, you know, opinion and words of encouragement for those that are aspiring to take part in the awards.
So, kind of like, well, why should they continue? Why should they?
Yep.
What's the reason to want to participate?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Personal development, professional development. I can understand why some people might struggle and why some people may not want to be involved sometimes. I know I haven't been involved in a little while, so I may be a little bit out of touch, but I do remember back in 2019 when the last time was that I submitted for anything or participated. I remember there were some people that were talking about, you know, popularity contests, and a lot of people were upset about the idea that, you know, you could self-nominate and all that type of stuff. And I get that. I mean, I remember, you know, back in 2010, Installer of the Year time, and before that, and in between that and retailer and whatever, I remember that, you know, you couldn't self-nominate, and it was strictly led by reps and, you know, other colleagues and stuff like that had to be like, hey, that's the guy. And, you know, when it changed over to you could self-nominate, there was a whole lot of concern about that. And I get that, because it's kind of like, hey, I want an award. Okay, here's an award. So I kind of understand that, but I also understand the reason for doing that, and how there's a lot of shops out there that are phenomenal that like would never get a nomination because the reps just don't go there, you know, and they're doing this amazing work, but they're just not on the radar. So there's a good reason for it. But what I would say is, like, if that's your thing, I get that, but try to get past that, because while you technically can just, self-nominate. What it takes from you, as an individual, as a business person, whatever, or as a salesperson, as a technical support person, as a supplier, whatever award it is that you're going for, what it takes from you in that capacity, is going to teach you so much about who you are in that capacity, that the value of that is like exponential, So if you can get past that, whatever these hangups are that you have, and get yourself to that top 12 position where you really have to dig in and you really have to start like thinking about the hard questions and creating this content and showing people why it is that you think that you deserve to win. The things that you're going to ask yourself, Elias, and you and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, the things that you have to ask yourself, the things you have to learn about yourself as you're recording, the things that come to your mind, the ways that you learn that you want to present yourself in this creative, unique way so that you can win. It's so empowering and so revelatory for how you are as a business owner. When I put together my presentation for Retail of the Year, I was like, oh man, I got some stuff to learn about how to be a retailer. Because some of the things that they were asking, I was like, I don't know, So it was a really good learning experience for me that, like, pay attention. These are the things that you're doing well. These are the things you're not doing well. These are the things that within your own mind, your own heart, that you have to work on. And then you work on them. But then above and beyond all that, there's the value within the business, within your marketing strategies and all that type of stuff, to be able to display your awards, to be able to speak to what they are, to be able to show your customer, look what we did. This is the whole industry said we're the best retailer in the year for this, in the country for this year. There's a lot of power to that, and when you get your people involved, like we were talking about before, when it's a collective effort. I remember we won another award, Retailer of the Year runner-up, and we were all involved in it, and it was the goofiest thing. We did it like a spoof on Undercover Boss. Okay. And I was the undercover boss. So like I put on this corny outfit, like I was like this like cowboy with a cowboy hat and a fake mustache over the top of my beard, and like I had this like fake Texan accent and all that kind of stuff. But we had so much fun that like we even talked about that being almost like a training manual for new employees, to use, because it goes over all the facets of the business. So like, if you can get your people involved, make it a team effort, have fun with it, learn about yourself, it is absolutely worth overcoming whatever hurdle it is that you have to overcome to get from I'm nominating myself to I'm involved in this annual tradition, really.
Yeah. No, I love that. Because you're right. It allows you to self-reflect. It's something that Brian and I have spoken about, and even Chris McNulty. We talk about this on the regular. For me, it's learning about yourself and being better. It allows you to really, filter out, the do's and don'ts, and the why and the why nots. So it's empowering in itself. But I love your spin on it, and like I said, this question, especially coming from you, you're one of the most influential and motivational people in the industry. I myself have been influenced by what you've done. So for those that, want to aspire to be better, I think what you said, hits nail on the head. It hits home, and, at the core, I think that's what we all should aspire to be. So.
Yes. And thank you so much for everything you said, man. I really, really appreciate that.
I mean it. And I think Brian would agree to it too.
Yeah, 100%. So I bring this up. I will probably bring this up every time this question comes up, because a similar comment gets made just about every time. And you made it, you brought it up, John. Okay. People are like, oh, it's a popularity contest.
Yeah.
Okay. So Las Vegas, February, Industry Awards, Rick Kojan and the Sony guys are standing on stage. Mm-hmm. They won Vendor of the Year. Mm-hmm. And, he's talking up there and he goes, so many people call this a popularity contest. And he goes, and yeah, it kind of is. He says, but it also is not. It is a work your ass off contest. Because everything that his team does all year, and this applies to everyone, everything that you do all year to get recognized, to be a participant, to possibly be standing on that stage, you work your ass off to do.
Yes.
So it kind of goes back to what you were saying, like when you had to put together this document that probably by the time you were done weighed 15 or 20 pounds.
Yeah.
You had to put it in a box and ship it somewhere, right?
Uh-huh.
And now it's this video we produce, that you do as an individual or you do as a team or whatever the case may be. You put these videos together, but not only that, it's the time we spend online, that shops promote their business or installers promote what they build, and shops promoting what they build, and everything that we do, tech support guys and trusted techs out there helping people all over the place. The trusted tech guys are doing it for free.
Mm-hmm.
We as tech support, I'm doing it as a job, but then in the evenings I'm sitting there and I'm still helping people out.
Right.
I'll answer questions that don't even relate to what I do.
Right.
Full time,
Right.
So
Right.
it's just, I still get people that call me for tech support for Escort Radar. I haven't worked for them since 2020, and I still get guys that call and ask for help because they know me, and I'm not going to tell them no. Hey, okay, it's this, whatever, and until I can't really be useful anymore because I've been out for so long. But
right,
this is as much as it is a popularity contest to some degree, which it is and will always be, because you're relying on people to vote for you because they know who you are.
Right.
But also because they see what you do.
Right.
And
that is how a person becomes popular.
Right.
Because of what you do, how you present yourself,
Exactly.
The work that you do, how engaged you are, how much you help each other out, like we talked about before, 12 Volt Insider Forum, we've been around for a long time, man. That's how you get popular, but popular doesn't have to be a negative context,
Right.
It is very much a positive context. When I think about some of the most popular people I can think of in this industry, they are like the guys that, where would we be without them?
Yes. Yes, 100%. Because the guys that are like, I don't know any, but I'm sure they might exist out there. Maybe, look at like other industries. Okay. So let's talk like music or movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you got guys that are just complete jerks, they don't go anywhere. Their band falls apart. Their acting career takes a dump,
right?
Whatever, because their popularity was negative popularity.
Right.
So if you're this far in, if you're in the top 12 or top 5 or whatever, even if you make the top 50, you got to be doing something right.
Right. There's a reason. Otherwise, you would have fallen off by now,
Right. Yeah. 100%. So,
yeah.
I want to finish with this, and this is more personal.
Okay.
You wrote a book.
Yes.
You wrote a book.
I did. Yes, sir.
I read the book.
Yes.
We talked about it a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
You and I have had conversations outside of the industry related stuff.
Yeah.
We've talked about my progress in losing weight and changing my growing, changing how I put myself together to not look like a 30-year-old installer in a 50-year-old body.
Yeah.
Motivation comes in a lot of ways for different people. And I know you do motivational speaking and you like to talk to people and inspire people. You've done more for me than a lot of people. And my list of people that I look to for motivation personally is short. But you're in there. And you're in there because I've told you that before. But this is where I get to go, hey, man, thank you for everything. In and out of the industry, the conversations we've had, the talks we've had, hey, how do I do this, or how does that work, for everything. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for saying all that, man. It's
for sharing your life with Charlotte.
Absolutely. Yep.
I think the industry still, like, we all feel like Uncle so-and-so to a girl who's never met a lot of us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, it's my son still, you know, he's almost 22 now.
Yeah.
And people still ask about him.
Yeah.
You know, watching him grow up in the industry. So it's one of those things where a few of us, where our family was kind of put out there with us in the industry, not in the industry per se, but just to the industry. That kind of holds a special spot for some of us.
Yeah. And you know, here's the thing, my thought on all that, on sharing all that. And it's actually kind of funny because I tell Charlotte that sometimes, like, oh, I saw, you know, I was at this event and like saw these people, you know, they know you, or they said hi. She's like, what? Like, how do they know me? Like, I'll tell you one day. Basically, everybody knows your personal life story. Basically, right. A bunch of strangers know all these things that you went through. But
it's what you went through.
Yeah, it's what I went through, and you know,
what you went through.
And it's been beautiful when I brought her to places and people see her and they're so happy to see her because like they feel like they were kind of like a part of that journey to a degree, and to watch her grow and to watch her overcome and all that type of stuff. I think it means so much to me to see these people who really outside of their humanity have no personal connection or reason to care, but they do, and they show it, and when they see her, they're happy and they're proud, and it's like, man, it fills me with so much gratitude for the industry again, and just, I don't know, hope for her. But my thoughts on the whole sharing thing, you know, and putting this stuff out there and connecting to people, and you know, I don't really like the term like motivational speaker. I don't know. I think I know actually every single person has a story to share. You know, We've all been through things. We've all had things happen, and we can all benefit from the lessons that we all have learned from those experiences. And so the best thing that we can do for each other, to support each other in the industry, in the country, in the state, in the human race, is to share the things that we've experienced and what we learn from them, so that other people might benefit from that. It's like a collective thing. We do this together, you know? So like all that time that I shared, any of that stuff, the stuff that I went through with Charlotte, the stuff that I went through with sobriety and my own weight loss journey, and like all those things, you know, that you're referencing, it was all just, it was cathartic for me. It was like, just get it out. You know, the book was primarily cathartic for me, you know, get this stuff out. But then also to just put it out there so that if somebody could do something with that, they now have it to do with whatever they're going to. Because in the beginning, when I first started sharing about these kinds of things, I would hear from people that like, this is really helping me to think about what my own, you know, problems are, what kind of things are holding me back in my own life, changes that I want to make. And you know, thank you for sharing, because now you're showing me that like I'm not alone, right? We all think we're alone. We all think that like these things only happen to us, and we're just not. Like, right. We all experience so much of the same things. It's crazy. The stories I've heard, you guys, I could go for like 3 more podcasts easily, but everybody would get really sick of me and never invite me on one ever again. So, but it's like when you hear those types of things, it's like you almost have like a responsibility of sorts, you know, to share, you know, when you've got a story inside of you that might help other people in some kind of way. You kind of have a responsibility. So like I'm very grateful to you for being so vocal, you know, with your thoughts on that, because it's kind of, it's not easy, but to know that it resonates with other people so strongly, especially so long afterwards,
Yeah.
it really means a lot to me, man. So thank you so much, really.
All right. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on. This was exciting for us.
Yeah.
Brian and I were talking about this for weeks. So
That's awesome.
This
That's
was
awesome.
awesome. Thank you for taking the time.
It's a lot of fun when we talk about who we want to have on the show. Elias and I talk about this all the time. We're thinking episodes upon episodes upon episodes in the future, right? Because I mean, with what we're doing on this podcast, we have a lot of built-in potential content because there's so many people and so many retailers and people to talk to. So it's when we're talking about who do we want to talk to next, who do we want, and we just start building this list, and then and we'll make a list. Okay, who do we want to prioritize? And when we start talking about that, that's when I think he and I both are like, okay, we know these shows XYZ that are coming up are going to be amazing.
Even more exciting when we have the same name,
Yeah. Yeah. It really does when we go, okay, well, who do we want to have next? And he'll go, oh, well, let's have John. And I'm like, that was my thought too.
That's awesome.
It's just, like I said, it's very fun to get to do this. And none of us do any of this because we need anything out of it. We do it because we want people to enjoy guys like you talking about your past and your journey through the industry and what crazy 12 volt has been.
Yeah.
So every single time, man. And I thank you. And I know Elias thanks you for wanting to come on and coming and spending almost an hour and a half with us now.
It was my pleasure. So, thank you so much for inviting me.
And we'll talk because I've got another place where those other 3 podcasts. It might not be all 3, but I know where they can go. So we'll have to talk about that.
I might be able to be concise. Maybe. Maybe.
1.5.
Really not in my wheelhouse of being able to be, be concise.
So my final thought before we say goodnight to you is I think we need to talk to Chris Cook and we need to have the Children of 12 Volt.
Oh my God. Is that your idea Vegas, that you had earlier?
At Vegas. Think about that. Like my son, your daughter, what's his name up in California? His son was like installing with him and running his shop. I can't think of God, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. But there's a bunch of them, right? There's tons of them. There are lots of kids that are either, that we've seen growing up, through just being associated with other people in the industry, or kids that are, like my son that kind of grew up playing in the industry,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Man, that is such a great idea. God, that is such a great idea. I would absolutely be down for that. And I would love to work together to create whatever that's going to be.
Let's talk about that off for the next, see what we can do with Chris. But I think Vegas, that would be fun. That'd be a cool little special thing that we could do of, just bring the kids and,
sure. And I was just talking to Richard just the other day about doing some presenting again and being involved in Knowledge Fest again now that I'm out of the craziness of being a shop owner and especially in my new capacity and what I'm doing.
Right.
I do want to get back into the public speaking element of it more. So
I want to talk to you about that. We will. I'll get with you over the next couple of weeks. I have an idea for something that we could work on. I'd love to work on it with you. So.
Awesome.
John, thank you for taking some time, and I look forward to seeing what goes forward with Pathways for you.
Oh, absolutely.
Get ready.
We're excited.
It's gonna be a lot.
Excited. So, have a good night, and we will talk to you again very soon.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Wow. Dude, every time we do this, what's it's wow.
I think your 1 hour time suggestion is a suggestion. I don't
I
think
think we're just gonna have to call it hour and a half and you know,
hour-ish.
hour-ish. I mean, it just is.
Yeah.
But sharing with all of these guys, there's so much.
And the thing
So
is,
much with
what's even more, as a wow factor and leaves me like pensive for, just thinking is we only really touch on a little snippet, and what's to say what else is in there? What else, could we, dive into? There's so many different layers, but what makes this exciting is, you know, again, from when you initially had the idea to what we're doing with it now, it's learning, the stories, learning the ideas, learning what's behind, certain individuals like thinking process or, how they see things. It leaves you wanting more.
yeah.
And, for me, every time I log off, I'm like, man, I should have asked this, or I should have, said this. But it's like, even right now, we're at an hour and a half. What do we want to do? Like, do a 3 hour session?
Right.
Like,
It's it's unfortunately we kind of have to draw a line.
right.
And when we first started talking about this, everybody's like, "Oh, you got to do an hour." Dude, we can't do an hour. We did an hour with Chris McNulty. I think it was like an hour and 5 minutes, right?
We went over a little bit, but it was because
It was
he
like
was getting
an hour
yelled
and
at.
5, hour and 10, maybe.
He
But
was getting yelled at because
everyone
he had a
past
quick
that, it's $130,
Yeah.
$140, right? We're in, but there's so much, and like you said, we could be doing this for 3 hours, and to us, it would be nothing.
Right.
To people trying to watch, like, you can't. As much as I would love to, I'm afraid that people would get bored because they might not want to hear all the stuff we want to hear about.
Right.
Some of them will. Don't get me wrong. I know a lot of people would love to hear it. But
Yeah, I mean, I've been getting feedback on, people that, hey, I listened to the first half on the drive into work and the last half on the drive home, and it's great to get that feedback.
yeah,
But it's also one of those things like, Jon was just saying, he's thinking about, coming back to the presenting side of what we do. And that's great because not only, this is for fun and for, capturing, influence and motivating others, but, in a presenting setting where people want to go learn,
yeah,
that's valuable.
right,
That's
right. And I'll say this. I'm going to say this real quick. Sorry to cut you off, Elias. Anyone, if you see Jon Kowanetz's name come up on a K-Fest presentation on an education track, I've been there. I've been to those tracks. Those tracks drove my business to make changes.
Yep.
So I know I think he's still in the back room listening, but if his name comes up on a Knowledge Fest track, you better make sure your butt's in a seat because that is going to be valuable information.
And, Jon and, everybody else that we've had on here, like John Schwartz, Jeff Smith, Chris McNulty, Jason Cook, I've sat in on some of those classes. I've presented with Chris.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where you learn a lot. And even, presenting with Chris, I've learned a lot from him just being a co-presenter.
Right.
So, there's so much value to, what we do, and individually we put a lot of passion. We're talking about awards, but from a presenting, perspective, that's another thing that we do, and it's great.
Yeah.
So this was exciting today. No, I am definitely gonna look forward to rewatching this one.
I want to put something out there.
Sure.
You and I talked about this. I'm working on I don't have it all put together yet, but we've talked about this. We created this podcast called Where Are They Now? And it's talking about all the people who have won in the past. And it's not one. The people we've talked to so far have all been winners. But mind you, Where Are They Now? The finalists is not about just winners. It's about people who made it to those top spots.
Yep.
Competed to win, right? We'll get to them. we've got a long list of people, and like I said, we have to prioritize who they are.
Yep.
First thing I'll say is we've got a recording coming up in a couple of weeks with somebody that's I think it's gonna blow people away. I'm overly excited for that one. The second thing, I'm working. Well, let me say we, because there's more than just me on this. We are working on a little spinoff for this year, for the summer. Yes.
Yep.
How to get there. All right. Not where are they now.
How to get there.
How to get there. This is for everyone who wants to know what it takes and what are the tricks, what are some tips to, once you get into the top 50, how do you get to 12? And if you get to 12, what does it take to win? Okay. There's no guarantee that any of this will get you to the winner's spot, but this is what these guys have put in. This is what these guys know. This is what these people have used to be successful.
40 hours in a big binder.
A big binder with 4x6 photos and handwritten notes and all that stuff. I'm sitting here looking around. I think the fly that was in Jon's office or in his room when we started the podcast somehow got through the camera because he's buzzing around right here. Anyway, so again, I don't have all the details worked out, but Elias and I honestly, the way I think it's going to be you and Ray and Lynn and I and a few other people coming together to do this, and it'll be multiple episodes. I'm thinking it's going to be like anywhere from 3 to 5 series episode, or 3 to 5 episode series. And I'm pretty sure we're going to be asking our guest tonight to join us on at least one of them.
That'd be awesome.
But I just wanted to kind of throw that out there because I'm way too excited and I can't keep it to myself anymore.
Yeah, well, you just did a spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. But yeah, how to get there. The Industry Awards 2024.
And everybody should get there.
Everybody should try. Everybody should try, because any of us that have been there know that it's the work is worth the effort, and the effort is rewarding.
I can speak to that. Absolutely.
Yep. All of us can. So with that, Elias, good night.
Thank you. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Absolutely. Coming up soon.
Yep.
All right, guys. Have a good night.